This is Rethik, your biology subject matter expert from Memonit. And in this video lecture, we will be concentrating on the ecosystem. So, what do you mean by an ecosystem, dear students? When an ecosystem can be visualized as a functional unit of nature where living organisms interact among themselves. As in the figure, you can see that all the living organisms they're interacting, where living organism they interact among themselves and also with their surrounding physical environment. So ecosystem in general varies. Okay. So many ecologists regards that entire biosphere as a global ecosystem, as a composite of all local ecosystems on Earth. Since this system is too much big and complex to be studied at very one time, it is convenient to divide it into two basic categories, namely terrestrial ecosystem as well as aquatic ecosystem. So here what happens? The forest, then we have grasslands, deserts. So they all comes under the terrestrial ecosystem. And coming to the aquatic ecosystem, such as ponds, we have lake, wetlands, rivers, estuaries, and all. They comes under the aquatic ecosystem. So there are other ecosystems such as crop field and aquarium. So they are right. They are what you say as man-made ecosystem. Clear, dear students. So we have categorized them as two. One is terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem. The forest as well as what do you say that? Sorry. Uh, yeah, that is the forest. Then we have grassland, desert. They comes under the terrestrial. Ponds, lakes, wetland, river, and estuaries. They comes under the aquatic ecosystem. We have another which is called artificial, that is man-made ecosystem, where the crop fields and aquarium they all come under that. Okay. So, well, when we look at the structure of the ecosystem, so we see a kind of productivity and transfer of the energy. So here the transfer of energy in form of food. So that is through the food chain or food web, or even I can call through the nutrient cycles. Okay. And the output through what do you say that degradation or the energy loss. So this all created as a result of the energy flow within the system and their interrelationship that we are going to talk. So therefore, the ecosystem, the structure and function, like as we know, the interaction of the biotic and abiotic components. So that is a result in the physical structure that is characteristic for each type of ecosystem here. Then identification and enumeration of the plant and animal species of the ecosystem gives its species composition, vertical distribution of different species occupying different level is called as stratification. For example, trees occupy top vertical strata or layer or a forest, and shrubs the second, where herbs and grasses they occupy the bottom layer, because trees, they are very tall, so they will be occupying the topper level. Then we have shrubs like plants and all, they will be occupying the second, where this herbs and all will be grasses occupy to the bottom layer. That is how it usually goes on. So yeah. Next, coming to the components of the ecosystem, one is productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and a nutrient cycle, which I discussed in the previous slide. See, to understand the ethos of an aquatic ecosystem here, we will take a small example of the pond as an example. A pond is a shallow water body in which all the that is productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycle, which has been mentioned, it acts as a basic components of an ecosystem, right? And the abiotic components such as water with all the dissolved inorganic and organic substances, and a rich soil deposit at the bottom of the pond. So if this is the pond and this is, say, it's land, and you have a pond ecosystem here. So this is soil. So this is how it is rich with inorganic, organic, dissolved substances and all. So then there is a sunlight which is coming. Okay, so solar input, the cycle of it could be temperature, day length, and other climatical regulation regulates the rate of function of the entire pond. Then the autotrophic components, which including the phytoplanktons, some of the algae will be present, the floating, submerging, and the marine plants, which are found at the edges. They all make one pond ecosystem. So here what happens, the consumers are represented by the zooplanktons and the free swimming bottom dwelling forms. And the decomposers here will be the fungi, certain bacteria, and flagellated, especially abundant in the bottom of the pond. So this system performed all the function of any ecosystem and the biosphere as a whole. That is, conversion of inorganic into organic matter with the help of the radiant energy of the sun by the autotrophs, that is plants, then consumers of the autotrophs by the heterotrophs, and decomposition and mineralization of the dead matter to release them back, okay, from the reused by the autotrophs. So these events are repeated over and over again. So this is an unidirectional movement of energy towards higher tropical level, and its dispassion and loss as heat to the environment. We have the next concept that is called the productivity. So what do you mean by productivity here? The productivity, the continuous input of the solar energy as the basic requirement, okay, for any ecosystem to function and to sustain. So primary production is defined as the amount of energy or the biomass or organic matter which are produced per unit area, okay, over a time period by plant during the process which is called as photosynthesis. And the rate of the biomass produced is actually called as productivity, and it is expressed in the term of weight. So that is gm to the power of minus 2, or energy, that is cal m to the power of minus 2. So here the rate of the biomass produced, as I told, is actually called as productivity. And this productivity, right, it is actually expressed in the form of gram to the power of minus 2 yr to the power of minus 1, or cal m, that is to the power of minus 2. Okay. So then it can be divided into two GPP, that is gross primary productivity, and the net primary productivity, which is nothing but NPP, where GPP of an ecosystem is the rate of production of an organic matter during the photosynthesis, and considerable amount of GPP is utilized by plant in the respiration. So we have GPP, okay, that is gross primary productivity, minus you will be doing, that is GPP minus R, that is respiration loss, is equal to the NPP, that is net primary productivity. That is the formula. So next, the net primary productivity is the available biomass of the consumption to the heterotrophs, which is herbivores and decomposers. And secondary productivity is defined as the rate of formation of new organic matter by the consumers here. Clear? So we have decomposition here. So decomposers is nothing but they break down the complex organic matter into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, nutrients, and the process is actually called as decomposition, where dead plants remains such as leaves, bark, flowers, and dead remain animals, including their fecal matter, okay, which is a raw material for the decomposers. And the important step is the process of decomposition are, it could be the fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, emulsification, as well as mineralization. So we have earthworm, which are actually called as distrivers, which break down the detritus into small particles. This process is actually called as fragmentation. By the process of leaching, water-soluble inorganic nutrients go down into the soil horizon and gets precipitated there as unavailable salt. Then the bacteria, fungi, enzymes degrades those detritus into simple inorganic substances, and the entire process is actually called as catabolism. Very important. And here comes kind of what do you say that? So this represents a decomposition cycle. Decomposition cycle in a terrestrial ecosystem. Okay, so this is how you're saying it. Plant leaves are there. So the earthworm, so they are going to cut down them. Some are eaten by insects and the other animals. Nutrients are energy flow of the web. So if some are being utilized by the leaves, they are consumed by decomposition, such as fungi and bacteria. So loss form and better. So next is some nutrients leaches into soil by chemical reaction, or if they are been utilized by the bacteria here, that becomes organic rich. This is how normally energy flow happens. Decomposition method happens. We have emulsification and mineralization occurs during the decomposition of the soil. So emulsification leads to the accumulation of the dark colored amorphous substances, which is actually the humus, that is highly resistant to microbial action and undergoes decomposition at an extremely slow rate. Being colloidal in nature, it reserves as a reservoir of the nutrients, and the humus is further degraded by some microbes, and releases of inorganic nutrients occur by the process which is actually called as mineralization. So decomposition is largely an oxygen required process, and the rate of decomposition is controlled by the chemical composition, by detritus and climatical factors. In particular, when I'm talking about the climatical condition, decomposition rate is very slow. If the detritus is rich in lysine or chitin, and quicker if the detritus is rich in nitrogen and water soluble substances like sugar. Temperature, soil moisture are also one of the most important climatical factor which regulates the decomposition. Uh, it gives an active where microorganisms become more active in the soil. Warm and moist environment favors the decomposition, where low temperature and anaerobics, bacteria inhibit the decomposition, resulting in buildup of the organic matter. So this is one of the example of how an energy flows occurs. In the producers, we know that on the incident of the solar radiation, okay, so 50% of its photosynthetic activity radiation, known as plant and photosynthetic bacteria, autotrophs, they fix up this, what do you say, that the radiant energy to make food from simple inorganic matter and all. So plants is one which actually utilizes, right? Uh, which actually utilizes this everything. So it is very important to know how the solar energy has been captured by the plant flow through different organ, and how it is being flowed through the different organisms. Further, ecosystems are not expected from the second law of thermodynamics, that is, they need a constant supply of energy to synthesize the molecule they require. They too uh, contract that universal, tendency towards the increasing disorder line. That is, see, the green plant is the one in the ecosystem which are actually the producers. So like phytoplanktons, grasses, trees, and all. Right. So what happens here is, you have read about the food chain, right? So in food chain, what happens? So green plants are like the primary consumers, such as herbivores and all, grasshoppers, cows, zooplanktons, herbivores. So they depend on these producers. So producers comes under the first tropical level here, the plants, and the herbivores, they comes under the second tropical level. So they directly depend on the plants for their food. So then we have consumers. So in consumers, we have two kinds. One is secondary consumers and tertiary consumers. Secondary consumers comes under the third tropical level, where they are carnivores, such as small birds, fishes, wolf, and all, which are carnivores, and it depends on the primary consumers. And the tertiary consumers were top carnivores, such as man, we, lion, and all. So they comes under the tertiary consumers, where they are very strong and dominant over the secondary consumers, and majorly over the primary consumers. So that's how happens. Like we have the grass here, it has been eaten by the goat, and the goat is being eaten by the man. So grass here, they are the producers. Goat is the primary consumers, and the man will be the secondary consumer here. So if there is no one than man, so man will become the secondary consumers. Consumers, basically. Okay. So this is how the energy flows normally goes. So energy from this will obviously transfer to the goat and from here to the man. Then we have the detritus food chain. So detritus food chain where there comes decomposes. So they are actually the heterotrophic organisms. Okay. So mainly the fungi, then we have bacteria, they all come under the heterotrophic organisms. So they are also called as saprotops. So where the sapro is nothing but the decomposition. Okay. So they secretes a digestive enzymes that break down the large, complex, dead and waste material or matters into the simple inorganic material, which are subsequently absorbed by them. So yeah. So in general, everything is actually called as food web. Clear. So we have energy flow through the different tropical level. So sun as a form of heat, the energy, the solar energy has been absorbed by the first tropical level, that is plants, and they synthesis their food with the help of photosynthesis process, and that is again they will release heat for sure, and the energy is being transferred to the secondary tropical level, that is primary consumers such as insects, cow and all, and again they will release heat while they are utilizing the energy, and the energy is again transferred to the birds, which actually depends on the insects, that acts as a tertiary or third tropical level. There the again the secondary consumers. Then we have the other one, which is the fourth tropical level, which are the tertiary consumers, which are the top carnivores. These birds depend on the other small birds for their food. So here, the heat, the sunlight or the radiation energy, the energy is been passing from one consumer or one tropical level to the higher tropic, another tropical level. So once they are died, any of these are died, right? So they will be utilized by the decomposers. So in this way, the energy is being flowing from one tropical level to the another tropical level. So there comes an ecological pyramid. So what do you mean by ecological pyramid? A different tropical level, this relationship of energy flow is expressed in terms of number, the biomass or energy expressed in terms of number, biomass, or as energy. So the base of each pyramid represents the production at first tropical level. So there like number of individual, the pyramid of number in a grass. So this is representing in a grassland ecosystem. Only three top carnivores are supported in an ecosystem based on the production of nearly 6 million plants. Okay. So in the grassland ecosystem, where you will see that what do you say that this tertiary ecosystem, always the producers will be in the first starting from the pyramid, and the consumers will be at the top of the pyramid. Okay, when you're going from down to up, something like that. So in most ecosystem, all the pyramids number of energy and the biomass so will always be upward. That is, producers will always be more in number then you will see the primary consumers, secondary consumers. So number is always remember the population or the producers will be the more in number than the primary, secondary, and tertiary consumers. So this is showing in the higher tropical level, where again, producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. So that was in grassland, and this was in tropical level. So we have inward pyramid also. So in inward pyramid, you will see the producers will be in the first and the primary producers. Okay. And the primary consumers will be at the top. See, like the if you see in the sea and all, the pyramid in the biomass in sea, okay, is generally so in sea is generally inverted. Only in seas you will see the inward pyramid because here the biomass of fishes far exceeds than the phytoplanktons. Like if there are plants, when compared to their population, fish population will be more. So this is how it happens. So next we have observed the conversion of this, like how we are going to convert. So an ideal pyramid of energy, observe that the primary producers convert only 1% of energy into the sunlight available to them. So if there is a primary, that is the energy, that is sunlight energy flow from one level to the another level. So here, the most of the energy will be produced, absorbed by the producers, and very little amount of energy. You will see the energy decrease as it keep on passing from one one level to the other level, from the primary to the producers to the primary consumers, then to the secondary consumers, and to the tertiary consumers. Okay. So this is all about what do you say that how an ecosystem is and how an ecological pyramid is there. So next we will be learning about the ecological succession, then the succession in plants, how it is, the nutrient cycle. So a nutrient cycle, maybe we will be learning about the uh, carbon cycle, then the phosphate cycle, then the ecosystem services is like what largely we will be concentrating on.